Hello, welcome to The Truth, number 3, my show. I'm very happy to invite you today to think about yourself in terms of your personal truth. There is the conscious mind that says, I remember. And of course you really believe it and trust it. But here I want to point out that it is only the first 3 seconds of what you're looking at, seeing, hearing, feeling, touching, and so on, that remains live. In other words, for you to continue on with that idea. And in order to continue on with that idea, the next thing that happens in 3 seconds is that your brain moves into your subconscious. And there your subconscious has a lot of photos, memories attached to photos. And of course, when you put the 2 together, you start to have a rationale that will justify everything that you say consciously. What you don't realize is that if you take a moment to contemplate, meditate, you can take the conscious, subconscious, and take it all into the deep subconscious. Now, the deep subconscious actually has a memory of everything you've ever done. So I'm going to go back in time for you. I'm going to say that while you were in the womb, your mother was busy thinking her thoughts consciously, subconsciously, and deep subconsciously. And you, as a new spirit, in a new tiny little body after the quickening, that's when you take up residence, immediately as a spirit entity in your little body, take on 100% of your mother's memories. So by the time you pop out of her womb, you are in reality a miniature of your mother. And of course, as soon as you are put on the breast or held by her and bottle fed, whatever it is, you are running identity energies. Now, your conscious mind doesn't speak yet. Your subconscious mind isn't really aware of making images, however you are. But they are subliminal, immediately tied into your spirit consciousness. So when you're held by someone who's not mummy, i.e. daddy, and if daddy has, in my case for example, been away at war forever, as it seemed, so that when my daddy came home, I had an absolute stranger, had no identity, no recognition from my spiritual into my subconscious to stir up something in my conscious mind. So what I actually saw was my father's current war experiences, tanks blowing up, flames everywhere, loud noises, and yes, I was afraid. And when I walked into my mother's bedroom to climb in bed with her, I looked at my father and thought, I don't know this man. I don't trust him. I've never seen him before. And of course my mother told me to come round and get in bed with her, and immediately put me between them, and I'm like this. Oh! But of course, it took me only about half an hour to an hour to be won over by a toy donkey that you pressed the bottom and everything collapsed. It was made of beads. And of course, immediately when you let go of the bottom, it flew up into the right positions. And I wanted that donkey. And so I got along with him okay, but it took me several weeks to feel I belonged to him. Now you might say, how weird. But actually, my spirit self was sending impulse memories of DNA of my ancestors, grandmas, grandpas, and things like that, along with images that my mother had seen of my father when he'd been young and gone off to war, and so on, so that by the time I'd nurtured in my mother's arms for a while, I became easier because she was easier with him. Now, of course, I was a war baby, born in 1942, so if you do the math, that makes me 80. And it took me about 2 years to really come to understand that my daddy loved me immensely and that he really cared about me. But here I want you to understand that how was I actually making memories? Well, here's what happens. Your conscious mind says, something's catching my attention, and so you look. But before you've looked, you may have heard something. Might be a click of a clock, might be someone walking in a room, and of course you're stirred to pay attention to what you've seen. Now you've got two senses that are working for you, your vision and your hearing. But now somebody says something or does something, and as they do, you look at them and you see how they act. Now let's say they're angry. They pull an angry face, or oh, ouch, or oh dear, or oh my God, it's a terrible thing, and so on. You're looking at those faces. You don't really understand their words, but you are instilled within your subconscious and deep subconscious mind to copycat what you see. So immediately you start to make similar noises as a baby can, giggle and gurgle if it's happy, or cry and make a miserable face. Those are the beginnings of your muscle movements in your tiny little face. By the time you're a year, you've learned to make some of the same faces. Of course, you don't know you're doing it, but it's called copycatting from the soul, from the RNA and the DNA. Now, the RNA is new, you're making it, but the DNA, well, that's a different story, because you've got grandma, grandpa on both sides of your mum and dad, you've got family members, uncles and aunts, you might even have brothers and sisters already born. So in whatever case you're looking at, you're actually learning to copy those expressions. And of course the tones, the way people talk. Well, my parents talked very well, we had good English, and so as you can hear me today, I talk with good English. Even though I've lived in America for over 40 years, I still use the connotations of my British upbringing. And of course, when I travel the world and I'm listening to other languages and I'm teaching as I've been doing for over 40 years as well, especially in Japan for 20 years, it was easier for foreigners to understand the British language because it's slower and of course we don't mumble. That is, if you're from the upper class or the middle class. But if you slip down into the working class, then you're going to hear something like this. Here mate, want a cup of tea now? Yes, that was a puzzle too that we all had to learn. So now let me take that into a wider field today and say we have all sorts of people in America and Europe and anywhere else who have all learned English and all speak with an accent and all make facial expressions. So you want to watch their face. You want to watch their mouths because you want to see what they're saying. I noticed when we had the masks on that I couldn't understand people all the time because a lot of them were mumbling away behind their masks, so it seemed, or really talking with accents, and so I wasn't really quite sure if I got the meaning of all the sentences. So after a while, I started to say to myself, I need to watch the eyes. Up until then, had not realised just how much I watch mouths. So I started to watch people's eyes, and I could see that a lot of people were very sad in the eyes, angry in the eyes, lost in the eyes, miserable in the eyes, and the list went on and on. Especially pain. Pain really hit me a lot. And because I'm a healer, I was always looking at what is wrong with them. Why are they emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually in pain? And so I began to study something I've been studying for years, but in a different point of view. I began to study the DNA, the RNA, in terms of how it affects our facial muscles, The way I'm moving my head, for example, is very natural. I've always done it. I'm not doing it for you. The way I hold my body, I'm not pulling my shoulders back like I should do. I'm crunching forward. I'm leaning out towards you. This is body language. So I'm sharing who I am with you and hope that you see that I'm as natural as I can be and that my expressions are really very full in meaning, in that I'm generally saying, here I am. But you see, it's not enough just to say, here I am. If I kept this same expression all the time and just talked to you all the time with the same monotone, I would become boring. You'd soon switch off and go and do something else. So what's your mind doing? It's looking at the eyes, it's looking at the way even the nose might be moving if you have a cold, or how you move your lips. Some people only move one lip, maybe the bottom lip. Others move only the top lip, like this sort of thing, when they talk. It's a bit difficult for me to mimic, but you get the idea. Now, sometimes their faces have creases in peculiar places. That's because they either have funny smiles, funny laughters, funny miserable faces, and so on. And of course we get many, many lines in our face that show how we use our muscles in the face. Now we have 101 muscles that we actually are aware of and use in our face all the time, every day of our life. But there are other muscles underneath the cheeks, there are muscles into the bones, there's muscles into your forehead, up here for example. When you smile, you're using these muscles up here to help you pour, and the forehead and so on. So just stop and think how expressive you are or you are not. There are some people who have a sort of plain face. I'm talking to you, I'm really not saying much. I've got a sort of mask on because I don't really want you to know me. I'm kind of bored. Lots of faces out there, and it might be an idea for you to go out and study faces and then go home and look in the mirror and say, how does my face fit in with all those other faces out there? Another thing to be aware of is, of course, that you have copied not only mum and dad, but you've copied granny and grandpas on both sides if you've been lucky to have them all around. You've got siblings as well who've come along before or after you, and you're going to be copying them. There's also body language. For example, you see everybody sitting on the sofa watching TV and they've all got their head to one side. Okay? It's quite interesting to see the saying peas in a pod applies to family traits, routines, the body language, the way we stand, even when we're angry, how we wave our hands around, how we demonstrate how I feel or I don't feel. So let's come back to the conscious mind. Having realized you've been copycatting everybody you've ever met in your family, it was quite natural for you to copycat your schoolmates. And it was quite natural for you to copycat your work colleagues, your teachers, but of course your priests, and anyone else that you adhered to at some time or other, even if they were only a mutual person that you were talking to for a short period of time over a mutual issue. Even a professional person like a judge could have an effect on you in the way that you're going to express yourself after you've been judged and condemned or supported and helped. So here I want you to understand how actors and actresses are naturals for copying facials and things. In fact, if you take a program like The Crown, which I have been watching quite a bit lately, which of course brought me back to my British language a little bit more than usual, to be able to say, I recognise how I was taught and trained to behave, and how I also taught myself to not behave, to not be a snob, to not be QT on the quiet, that is, but to tell people how I was thinking and how I was feeling. And of course there were always people around me who were saying, stop playing up, stop showing your emotions, stop telling people how you feel and think. But being a medium and listening to Jesus and Siddhartha Buddha and Muslim faith and all the other people came and went, many of them I might add, not just Muhammad, but also the Jewish people, and many of them from Abraham or Abram to Moses, to lesser people like Joshua and so on. There was always someone in my head telling me, don't listen to them. Don't be like them. You are not the same. You're a free person. You can be individual. You can do anything you want to do. And now I'm saying that to you. If you feel you're trapped by your family memories, you're trapped by the way you were trained to grow up and to believe and to adhere to things. Yes, there are some wonderful memories. Yes, there are some wonderful foods that you ate. Yes, there are many nice days in a child's upbringing, if you're fortunate enough to have balanced parents. But there are also many families, because of wars and because of the different cultures and the different states of different ideas, of different ways to behave, there were many, many families, even today, who don't get along. And so the point of my saying this little talk here today is to say this. You are a free spirit within you. Yes, you have the DNA of your ancestors, but they're gone. They've passed on. So just be glad that you have some of their talents and skills deliberately chosen in the spirit world long before you ever incarnated in this life. Know that from above, as a spirit energy, you have counseled them and helped them through each of their lives, knowing how hard it was to live over 100 years ago. But you don't need to live as though it's 100 years ago now. All you need to do is to look at the world and the way it is and see the complications of the Piscean age, to see how so many people are still saying, well, when I was young, we all did this and that. And my grandma, when she was young, she did all this and that. Why are you copying them? Why are you trying to be like them? Why haven't you found that individual part of yourselves, your talents, your skills? They're there. You brought them in with you in your coding from your soul vibration. So don't be afraid to show your talents off. Your talents may be of the mind, they may be of the heart, they may be of the body, and they may be of the spirit, or maybe some of all of it. Because if you're an old soul like me, yes, you've got lots of talents. And people say, oh wow, you're so talented. And I just say, it's all that I do, because I love to do it. And that's how you must be. You must love to live. You must love to acquaint yourself with happy situations. Even in the darkest moment, there is always something you can learn, something you can say of yourself, wow, I'm watching grandma shouting and ranting and raving, and I'm looking at her face and all her muscles. Do I look like that? Well, if I do, I have the point of mind now to change it. I'll go home and practice my happy face in the mirror. In my book, The Rejection Syndrome, you can buy that online on Amazon. I've got a little exercise you can do. It's something you read, and as you read it, you grab a line like being an actor, and you say it and look in the mirror. And it's your heart talking to your mind, and it goes something like this. Look at you. You're so mixed up. You think all these things all the time, and you never listen to me, your heart. Do you know how upset I am? Do you know how lost I am when you don't listen to me? Do you know I can make you feel happy if you just listen to me instead of going on and on about what's in your mind? Well, I'm improving right now because I'm not reading the script. But if you do that in your bathroom, looking in your mirror, at first you'll feel a bit strange because you're letting your heart talk to your mind, but do it 3 or 4 or 6 times, and suddenly you'll cry. And you'll cry because you'll realize you have not been listening to your heart. You've been listening to your conscious mind. Which brings me to say to you, your conscious mind is a liar and a cheat. How does it work? Well, when you look at something, your brain doesn't see the picture you think you see. Your brain sees lives, people walking around in common structures. Your body is a line. Your brain sees a shape that is made of lines and circles and curves and squiggles. In fact, geometrically, you are seeing geometrical shapes. And geometrical shapes have no feeling whatsoever about them. So let's take a window in a church. A lovely, beautiful window of Jesus and Mary and the baby child and all the colours that are there. And they're all held together by lines of lead. Well, your brain sees the lines of lead first. Then it sees the colours. Then it says, I'm looking for a similarity of where I have seen something similar before. And so you go from your conscious mind into your subconscious to look at all your photos of all the pictures, trillions and billions of them, that you've seen before, and you go, aha, I know what that is. I've seen a window in a church like this somewhere else before, so I have a feeling about it. It's familiar. But it's not a sense of spirituality unless you stood and knelt in front of that window and added to it an emotion. Please God, help me. I'm in need of help. While I'm talking to you, you're seeing the odd thing flashing across my screen. It's there for a reason. It's subliminal. Though you don't even know what it means, it's saying, I'm happy, I'm content, I can be whatever I want to be, I can do whatever I want to do, and so on. In its own way, it's sentences, but I don't want you to worry about it. Just know, subliminally, your conscious mind is passing that back into your subconscious, and your subconscious is passing that back into your deep subconscious. So those images that you correlate as identifying familiar things goes all the way back into your deep subconscious, where you say to yourself, I feel happy and content because I've processed my conscious and subconscious thoughts, and I've allowed my heart to awaken and give me the joy that I know I exist to be happy and content in this life. So I'm going to leave you with that thought and hope that you'll follow me and all the other shows that I do, which are all under 25 minutes. So take care, be happy,